what's going on, everybody? It's Rich Perez welcoming you back into another dose of the rundown. This is not the first time we're doing this. We've never put a name to this. Shout out, Long Island Zone, Uncle Tony, for giving me the idea on this one. So these interviews that we are rolling out now, we are calling them Legends of Long Island. So technically not first up, but first up, head coach of the Islip Buccaneers wrestling program, a member of the coaching staff at Brentwood High School that produced numerous league titles, county championship in 2008, county championship in 2012. Accomplished wrestler in his own right, Coach KC Beach. Coach, how's it going?
It's going great, Rich. First of all, it's an honor to be on this show. I've watched many episodes so far, and this is such a great program, not only for Long Island wrestling, but wrestling all across the country. You do a fantastic job with it, and it's great to see you with all this success.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach. That means a lot coming from you. So I guess before we get started with like the stories and everything, you guys just went through an abbreviated season at Islip, no actual county championship, but you did have like a dual counties going on, right? Can you kind of take me through what it was like coaching through a season where you're dealing with COVID?
It definitely was a tough situation. We have a fantastic athletic director in Mr. Spraccio that was working with us hand in hand. He's also in charge of Islip's contact tracing, which we were able to see the guidelines and exactly know what is expected for us going to the season. We planned our season like we were going to have a full season. That's something that we preach to our kids, stay positive and don't give up on the process. And we got to work, and we had our kids go through these vigorous workouts twice a day. And then we got into more of an individual workout. We weren't able to do much contact, much drilling, which, in the sport of wrestling, it's almost impossible to get a move down if you're not drilling it on a person. So we did a lot of individual stuff. I know it was monotonous for the kids, but we have a great group of young men that just came to work every day to battle and to get better. And it was awesome to see. We had great seniors and great senior leadership. One being Jack Spahn, who was told in the beginning of the year that there's not going to be state championship. And, he was right there as a front runner to be a state champ this year. So it was tough for him, but he has a younger brother in the program, and he kind of took that big brother role. And he was almost like an assistant coach with us, helping the kids out, making sure they understood what Islip wrestling is all about and the tradition that they have and they had throughout the years with all their success and all the great teams and programs that they've had. With the testing, since Mr. Braccio was our contact tracer, he made sure that our tests were done once, maybe sometimes twice a week, and making sure that we had the best plan in place to keep everybody safe, to protect not only our team, but to, other teams. His big thing is, let's get through this as a team, as a family. We got tested, I believe it was eight weeks in a row or 7 weeks in a row, and we didn't have one positive test. I have an amazing assistant coach, and Coach Newell, and he was like, like a drill sergeant, making sure these kids had their masks on when they were drilling. Anytime there was, a mask break, he made sure that we cleared out the room, which I think, helped us be successful with keeping those tests at a zero count.
So now, like in New York, right, everything's pretty much open back up again. You're heading into another season. Now it's the summertime, so you got a long off season until things start to pick back up in November. What's the plan now? Is it everything back to normal, or are you guys still kind of being cautious about things?
We are being cautious, just because you don't really know what to expect. I know we've had put stuff in place for our kids to be successful with workouts and training, and as of right now, our school district is allowing us to get back into the room. We just introduced our new superintendent, which is Mr. O'Hara, who has had two or three sons wrestle for Sachem. So he's going to be our new superintendent. He was a great superintendent over at Hot Bog for years. And now we're lucky enough to have him over in Islip. And we sit down with him this week and next week of coming up with a plan to get our kids back into the room as much as possible, because as you know, there's no really breaks in wrestling. You gotta, it's kind of an all around year sport. So our plan is, as soon as we get the green light, to make sure that we're all go. For years we went over the summer to wrestling trips, and similar to what you were a part of when I was the assistant coach over in Brentwood. We try to keep that continuing, because it's a great experience for the kids. The kids get to be around each other. They get to go through that adversity of matches and winning and losing and picking each other up, and really bringing that family aspect into the sport of wrestling, which that's how some of these great teams, not only in high school but in college, see the most success, because they don't want to let each other down.
Right. Speaking of family, I mean, that is something that has been a huge factor in your life. So let's, because you, coach, you have one of the more interesting stories around, is one of the many reasons that I wanted to have you on. So I want to get into you. When did you get your start in wrestling? Usually in Brentwood, especially back then, it was usually around middle school. Is that the case for you?
That was. I did start in 7th grade. We had a tremendous athlete, Dwayne Reed, who passed away a bunch of years ago in a motorcycle accident, unfortunate motorcycle accident. But he got me into 7th grade. He was the guy that everybody wanted to be like. He played football, he wrestled, and we just got, we were friends. And he said, hey, maybe you should come out for the wrestling team. I know you're sick of me taking you down. Maybe learn some defense. And he said, the coach at the time was Coach Knapp, and he's a great dude, and he was great around kids and could really entertain a crowd. So he was like, it's a lot of fun, come down, because obviously Dwayne was around the sport with kid wrestling, and I guess as a 6th grader he came in and he was worked out with the middle school wrestling team. So he had a good rapport with Knapp, and kind of brought me and a couple of my other friends into the wrestling community.
So what was that like? Was it something that you kind of excelled at early on, or did you have to work at it a little bit?
So yeah, I wasn't very good. I was real light. I was maybe 60 something pounds, maybe 60 or 70 pounds in 7th grade. But I hated to lose. I wasn't the strongest kid. I wasn't like the most athletic kid. But I hated to lose. And that was one thing that drove me to do that extra, to make sure that I was doing, maybe a little bit more. And I was always in the back of my head. But in 7th grade, I didn't really know what I was, what sport I was going to do. I know every young kid thinks they're going to be the next Michael Jordan or the next Emmitt Smith, or, those big professional athletes. But, I was just getting into it. I loved the fact that I could compete, and what I put into it is what I got out of it. That was a big reason why, wrestling kind of gravitated to me, and I gravitated to it. At the time, my dad was real sick, and it was kind of like a little outlet that I could burn off some energy and be around. Obviously, Coach Knapp and the middle school program was an uplifting experience at the time that I needed.
When did you first start to like really see success? Was it your 8th grade year? Was it during that 7th grade season?
No, yeah, I didn't really have much success my 7th grade season. I think I might have won the 5-2, some big matches, but I knew I loved the sport. So going into 8th grade, I was a little bit more confident. I was a little bit of a leader again. 7th grade year, I got actually kicked off the team. I just had problems with grades and homework, and I'll never forget my social studies teacher who took me off the bus. I was just going through a lot. I had a lot of stuff on my plate. My mom was working almost 100 hours a week. She was really home trying to support the house. My dad was in the hospital, and so it was just a lot that I was going through. So wrestling kind of focused me in, and really that's how I used wrestling for the rest of my life, kind of hone me in and make me do what I had to do and be successful. But I would say that it started to gravitate towards me being successful in eighth grade when I saw that I was working hard and I was believing. I think that's, something that I didn't lack confidence. I always thought that I was always going to be, pretty good at something. If once I put my mind to it, I thought I was going to be pretty good at it. But eighth grade, I had some success. And I want to say eighth to ninth is when I kind of, went through the biggest. That's when my dad had passed away. And then I think it was, it's definitely a big part as the coaches. The coaches were a big part, and maybe not my success, but them taking some time out of their life and just making me feel like I was a part of something, which is huge. Like I said, I was in disarray of what direction I was going in. And in Brentwood, you can go either direction. You could find that bad side, which is always out there, or you can find the positive side. And I think that these gentlemen kind of saw something in me, and they made sure that I was guided in the right direction. So I think they had a big part of my success in making me believe that I was, part of something, or I was going to be part of something great.
You definitely meant, well, you mentioned the coaches, and that's definitely something I wanted to get into. I had Coach Knapp on here, and, I was a little kid at the time when that coaching staff was in place. But to me, like to this day, like even with the county, and it's no slight against anybody, but even with the county championship teams, that staff, like even though they never got over that hump of winning a county title, was just like something great to me with the personalities and everything that was there. And I said to Coach Knapp, because Brentwood was a powerhouse, from like late 60s to early 80s. Then Coach Campbell had retired, moved on. And for a while, Brentwood had definitely fallen off. So I told Coach Knapp, if Brentwood is the house that the Gov built, it's the house that Coach P resurrected. Can you kind of take me through what it was like being around that coaching staff with those guys over there? Coach, what it was like wrestling for Coach P and Coach Newell, Coach Barnes, Nappy?
And I'll tell you what, that when I heard that was one of the better quotes I've heard in a long time, Rich. That was definitely where we were as a program at the time. Was a new guy with Panarello, very energetic, very charismatic, and the camaraderie that those guys had. Man, I would stay after practice and watch Coach Newell, Coach Barton, and Coach Panarello just talk and work out moves and want to be around each other. And, they were hanging out with each other, going out to eat. It was such a great situation that, as a young kid, that's what got me into phys ed and wanting, to be a coach one day. Like, look at what these guys have. It was something special. And the kids noticed it. So it had every aspect of a great coaching staff. And we still try to emulate it, at Islip to this day with, some stuff that Coach Newell had done when I was in high school. And, some of the great positive things that Coach Barton and Coach Panarello had done throughout my wrestling career. They had such a successful run. I think it was like 97 to 2002. They didn't finish lower than like fourth or third. And, they had a great bunch of years. I think they were probably the best program from that time frame. I might be a little bit off on the years, but I think it was like 97 to 2002, 2003 that if you took an average, they were one of the best teams in the county over that span. So which was great to see. And, leaders like, Felix Martinez and Salinger and Restrepo and, Cuffey and Irizarry, Santiago, these guys, paved the way for a lot of us and for the years to come for the success of Brentwood.
Can you kind of take us through like what it was like going through those practices, the energy with the dual meets and tournaments and stuff like that? Like, even because it's weird, even with like the success that Brentwood had later on, like, I mean, Brentwood was going to the Reno Tournament of Champions. You don't see stuff like that today.
That was it was a different beast too, because the way the season is structured now is you almost want to shy away from competition. And that's something that Coach Panarello never wanted to do. He wanted to find our guys the best competition. One of his things was if his kids are undefeated going into the season, he did something wrong. He wanted to make sure that we were challenged and make sure that we had, some tough matches underneath our belt going into the league and county tournament, because, for a bunch of years in the mid to late 90s, the Sachem's and the Longwoods and the Patchougs were some of the best in not only New York State, they had some of the best teams in the country. So he thought, his mindset was, if he could prepare us with some of the best competition in the country, that we would go into the season with a different mindset, that, we had the confidence, we had wrestled the best in the, in the country. And, if we were in the finals of the leagues or the finals of the counties, we had that underneath our belt, and we wouldn't have that much anxiety, going into the match. And, I remember him, expressing to us, and something that I still use to this day in our coaching philosophy is, everything, we want to win this match. Everything's important, but nothing's up on a pedestal. Like, everything in your life is important, but it's not that special moment. It's not like this end all thing. So it's something that we've kind of applied. Yeah. We want you guys to be successful, but don't make it the breaking point of view of being successful, winning that match. Don't think it's the end all, which, as we stress, having fun out there. Like, you see some of the Penn State mindset, and, you can't be so gung ho and stressed out, because sometimes it doesn't go very well for the outcome of the match.
When did you get to have like your first taste of like varsity wrestling? Was it quick, or was it after your freshman year?
It was I had a match my freshman year, I think at the Sayville, and just got to taste it. But at that time we had some really good guys ahead of me. So I knew my role. I knew I had some we used to do a green and white match. And so I was put into place there. I wrestled this guy, Carlos Santiago, at the time. He'd also passed away, but he was the varsity guy at the time, and I ended up having a 2-1 match with him. And, then I realized that, hey, look, this is, I'm here. This is something that I could see myself being successful in. And I kind of looked up to the older guys, because, they've been in the room, they know the program. They were always, the hardest workers in the room. And I kind of gravitated to that, because I knew that I wasn't the best wrestler, and I couldn't control that. I knew the one thing I could control was my work ethic. I could control coming to practice on time, working hard, giving my all. The outcome of the match, I can't really control either. I can't control, being the starter. But I think as an early age, I realized that it's, I couldn't control how hard I work and what I put in and the time that I put in and the extra practices. And I think that's what made me love wrestling even more. Like, you didn't have to be the star athlete. You could work to get there, which was awesome about the sport.
You mentioned, how you guys had a good number of good guys on that team. Something that has been a theme when I talk to a lot of Brentwood wrestlers on here, all through different eras, is with Brentwood, and it was other programs as well. I know Longwood had some guys that were backups and then went to other schools and ended up being like all county champ wrestlers, and while they were backups at this powerhouse at Longwood. But I know in talking to a lot of guys that wrestled for Brentwood had guys that, could have been all county wrestlers, but had the unfortunate they were in an unfortunate situation that the way we're just stuck behind some studs. And me and you just actually were having a conversation off air about an interview that was just done, where, a college wrestler, accomplished college wrestler, was talking about where he's at, and this is across a bunch of programs, but where he's at, he's a national champion, having to worry about, losing his spot. So like, because that's kind of the same theme over there. Like, how was it like that? Like, did you guys like feed off of stuff like that? Like, did it motivate you?
I think for the young guys, it was tremendous motivation. I remember, just as a sophomore, I had great, those guys were great seniors. Rob Cuffey was one of the seniors that year, and he's a 171 pounder, and I wanted. Not only did I want to be like him, I wanted to beat him. Even though he was 2 years older than me, he's a lot bigger than me, but that was my goal. Like, I think that's what was put into place, intrinsically by the coaches. Like, hey, look, you want to be there, you want to be the starter. So as you worked your butt off to get there, and once you finally got it, it was like, all right, now I have to hold it. You know, what do I have to do to maintain this? I got to do the extra workouts. I got to do the runs. I got to make sure my weight's under control. I got to make sure that I'm in a positive mindset going into the match. Like there's so many intricate things that played a part in motivating you to get that spot. And you know, sometimes you see these smaller programs. I know at Islip too that we might have a starter. It's not rare. It's not. It doesn't happen very regularly at Brentwood, but in Islip, we could have starters from 7th or 8th grade all the way up through. So nobody's really, you know, I could just go to example of Jack Spahn. Jack Spahn's been our starter since 8th grade, you know, so he knew that there wasn't many guys that were going to touch him in the room. But he went elsewhere and he did extra workouts, and, you know, we had guys come in and do other stuff with him. But, you know, that feeling of being chased, right? That feeling of somebody coming after your spot, it makes you work even harder. And on a day in and day out spot, you know, you have that sense of insecurity. And, you know, like if somebody's insecure, they're going to work even harder to make sure that they overwork and they make sure they put themselves in a position that they're not questioning if they're working harder, because they know the guy behind them is working that much harder. You know, and that's something that Brentwood has produced, you know, for years and years. You know, even you know, for example, with this year with COVID, you know, they had it's a crazy year, especially in Brentwood, and they had, you know, 100 something guys come out for the team again. Like, and it's on to the next one. Like if somebody got hurt, some kids didn't come out. They had another sick athlete coming out for the position or the weight class, and you know, they were able to plug and play. You know, throughout the season, which, you know, they had a sick, successful season.
Right, right. I know your junior year is when you really started to taste success. As far as the postseason goes, can you kind of take me through that year, like the things you were going through and just what it was like?
So this is in high school, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in I want to say that summer, 9th going to 10th grade, me, Cuffy, and Starland, we might have had close to 100 matches. You know, we were all up and down the Northeast. You know, at that time, as a ninth grader, I was able to wrestle in both cadet and junior. So there was, back then, freestyle was so big on Long Island. You could have a cadet tournament on Saturday, and at the same location, you have the junior tournament on Sunday. So, you know, every weekend I was getting 8 matches. You know, throughout the whole summer. And then, you know, obviously the Empire State Games and all those great events that you could be a part of to continue your wrestling throughout the summer were available to us. But that led me going into my 10th grade year with so much more confidence, knowing that I had all these matches underneath my belt. I was able to practice with some of the top names with Victoriero and Jansen and, you know, Mauer and one of the guys from Sayville Cox. It was great to be able to be around them. And to compete against them and know that I could hold my own with some of them. So, you know, I had confidence going into my junior year, knowing that I put the time in. So, you know, again, making sure I outworked everybody around me. That was something that I tried to do, try to be the hardest worker in the room. Kind of hard with some of the guys in the room, you know, especially, you know, a Starlin Jimenez who never stopped, who's always training, who's always trying to go through, you know, getting that extra workouts in and going all over the country for wrestling, you know, trying to keep up with him. But it was great motivation. So going into my junior year, I knew I was going to be one of the top guys in our room, not only for wrestling, but leadership. I was a captain for the football team. So I knew that it was going to be kind of continuing the trend of leading into the room. We had, it's the first year we were going to a Lion Mountain, which was a tournament right out of in Pennsylvania, which, you know, another way that Coach Penarello was able to put competition in front of us to make sure that we were getting the most out of our wrestling season. Not really caring about wins and losses, just making sure that we were battle tested and ready for war come league time. I had some big matches throughout my junior year that I was confident in knowing that going into the league tournament that I was going to have a pretty successful league tournament. I believe that I was one of the. Hold on, sorry, Rich. I believe that was one of the top guys in the county. That's when they first started out with the rankings, and I was in the top 5 one. I think I was 5th at the time ranked. I wasn't not really sure. But I was just excited to be up there with some of these big names. So finally, my name is in the mix, and again, always confident, but not overly cocky. I still, in the sport of wrestling, you have these seeds of doubt that just beat you up. That I'm not as good as that guy, or who's that guy, and it kind of affected me my junior year a lot. You know, I think that's what motivated me to train even harder with some of the things that I was doing, because I wanted the best outcome. And obviously, like I said before, the one thing you can control is how hard you work, especially in the sport of wrestling. So junior year was a successful year. I ended up beating the kid in the league finals that beat me for 3rd and 4th in the county. Great match, such a great family, the men's family out of Patchogue, which is ironic. Now I live in the Patchogue Medford district, and I see Mr. Mentz every now and then. And, it's just a good rivalry, great people. And that's, obviously the sport is great like that. A guy could beat you, and you could see him in the, 5 or 10 years down the road and just shake his hand, and, kind of, he knows what you went through, you know what he went through, and it's an awesome situation. But yeah, junior year was great. And, it led right into, that summer. I was excited because for the first time in my wrestling career, I won the Empire State Trials, which was huge. Long Island Empire State Games was like, the Olympics for some of us. And, I knew that I had a good shot at doing well up at the Empire State Tournament. So, and having success there during the Empire State Games, I ended up, doing pretty well. I took silver in Greco, and I took gold in freestyle, but it finally made me believe that, hey, look, I could be right there with some of the, not only the best guys in the county, but the best guys, in the state.
Was there anything like that the coaches like following that season were like drilling in your head? Because I know like that was something that you as a coach, when I was around you, when I was in high school, were doing. I'm sure you still do that to this day. As far as like goal setting and things like that, was there anything going on like that with you?
I don't know how I do it to maybe a little bit overboard with our Islip guys. But I think that's important. It wasn't stated like that to us. I think it became bigger in, just, I want to say 10 years ago, about the goal setting and keeping things in a positive mindset, and, keeping that good work attitude present in your, your everyday life. I don't say that it wasn't that the coach sat me down and said, hey, what are your goals? It was like, you know what? I want to be my own goals. I want to be better than Starlin Jimenez. I want to be better than, Joe Fernandez. I want to do, I want to be the best guy on my team. Well, I know that I have to train. I know I have to do all these extra things to get there. So that's what I'm going to do. I know I wanted to be, like everybody in Section 11, you want your name on the back of that blue shirt. That's a big one. Have your name on the back, and that was a big part of the goals, going into. But I think my motivation was a little bit skewed, or not skewed, but twisted a little bit because of my, what was going on in my life.
Right. And I know things were definitely tough at that time. Coach, I ask everybody that's a part of the Brentwood program this, because I have to. The biggest, I mean, Sachem's a big one too, but the biggest rivalry has always been Brentwood Longwood. I don't know how big it is now, with a lot of things have changed over the years, but
Yeah.
as long as I remember, that's the biggest rivalry. Everybody has like some type of story. What was it like going through that rivalry as an athlete and as a coach? Like, do you have some fond memories of that? Like, just that, what was the atmosphere like, all of that?
Yeah, I would say, like, when I was in high school, I didn't look at it too much as Longwood and Patchogue and Sachem. being our rivalry anymore, because it was such, we'd already beat them. So in 90, I think it was 98. It was the first time that we ever beat Patchogue, and that we beat, I believe that year we beat Longwood. The following year, 99, we beat all three of them. We beat Patchogue, we beat Longwood, and we beat Sachem. The next year, in 2000, that was my senior year, we ended up beating Sachem, beating Patchogue, but we ended up losing to Longwood, which was, I think it was a three-way tie for the dual meet league title. But I didn't see that rivalry too much until I got into coaching, because a big reason why that rivalry kind of dispersed was we lost Pocosi. There was no more Pocosi at Longwood when I was there, when I was wrestling them. Kelski was no longer the coach at Pat Med, who was an icon, icon over there. And Mahoney was just starting to get on his way out of with Sachem. But once we got thrown back into it, Sean O'Hara, who did a phenomenal job with Sachem East, kind of took over and built the dynasty over there. You had Coach Pocosi coming back into the mix, causing some of the antics that he's done through his careers of coaching in both Whitman and Longwood. And then you had Patchogue starting to get great, better with they taking over with Coach Anello, putting his time in and his twist on the program. So when I got back into coaching, Longwood became a huge rivalry because we've wrestled them at the time when I first got back into coaching. I was at East Middle, and at East Middle, we had a group of kids in sixth grade that I took, sixth and seventh grade, that I just worked with. I was there for 2 periods, but then that became like the first off-season middle school program that we were doing. And kids weren't going out for the baseball team or the lacrosse team. We were just going into, off-season wrestling at the time. So I thought my sixth grade and seventh grade year, those kids that were wrestling in sixth and seventh grade, they were going to have a tremendous year. And we ended up hearing about Longwood having this unbeaten streak with some of the Pocosi kids coming through, and we ended up beating them. But it was a great match. We won by maybe 1 or 2 matches, some controversy. That's where it started with me. We had some great matchups. Jenna Burke was there. The Rasheeds, the older Rasheed he didn't wrestle, but he was in the program. But a lot of those younger guys at Jennings, some of those guys that were coming up were right around our guys, and they were wrestling some of these top wrestlers. And Brentwood kids don't really come across these rivals that last for years. Like, I know, little Tony had some guys that he matched up. The guy from, I think it was Burbacker, that he had battles with when he was in, first or second grade, third grade. So, in Brentwood, most of these kids get started in 7th and 8th grade. So they really have that rivalry of losing to guys over and over and over again. So that was their first taste of it. Like, oh, wait, we beat this Longwood team. But I wrestled him. Now I'm in 9th grade and we see him again. And that was with Humberto and Chavera and at the time, the kid Castro. We had a lot of kids that had these rivalries built up. So I knew, Longwood had some great teams coming through, but also Brentwood had some great teams coming through. So it was going to be a fun couple of years to watch some great wrestling and some great matches individually.
Right. Coach, I really do have to get into this because your senior year story is like one of like motivation. It's I was really young when it happened. So, I kind of didn't, even though I guess I kind of saw it unfold a little bit, I didn't really, I don't know the word I'm looking for, just like understand it then. But years later, hearing you talk about it is something that's really stuck with me. It just continues to stick with me. So can you kind of talk to me about like that senior year, how it was going, the things that you had to deal with, and just going through it. I don't want to give away too much. I'll let you talk about that.
And that you're talking about in college or high school?
High school.
Okay, so yeah, because my both senior years for me were a lot of turmoil in every aspect. But in high school, it was a lot going into my senior year. Just my family life. If it wasn't for my older brother, my sister, my little brother, and my mom, like my support staff, almost it I don't know if I would be here where I am today. And you guys have all got to know my wife, Amanda, over the years. If I didn't have these people around in my life, then I don't know if I even get to where I am now, just because, that support system. My older brother was phenomenal, helping me out. My sister was my biggest fan as every wrestling match. I remember hearing her just scream. And my mom, she did everything she possibly could to work and give us and provide for us, even though it took away from her life and the longevity of her life. But she was doing right by us and making sure that we were we had the stuff that we needed. And going into my senior year, I was all sold on, after winning the Empire State Games, I'm all sold. And you know what? I'm not going to come out for football. I'm going to focus. I want to be a county champ. I'm going to train. I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm not going to play football this year. And she loved watching me watch me play football. And I was good, but, I wasn't like a standout. I knew for a fact I wasn't playing football in college. So, I told her that. She was, heartbroken. And she's like, Case, you have to play. When's the next time that you're ever going to play organized football? And I'm like, but Mom, this is what I want to do. I want to be a county champ. I want all these things. I love wrestling. And she's like, you got to, you started this, you have to finish it. You have to play your senior year. I ended up going out for the team, ended up being, captain, and it was a tremendous year for us. We ended up being the best team in all of Long Island. We won the Rutgers Cup, which is voted on by all the coaches. We won the Long Island Championship. I was the MVP. It was a tremendous year, and I thank my mom, as much as I possibly could, for telling me to go out for the team and, be a part of that program. So going to the last game of the season, I took an inside slant over the middle and kind of caught the ball, but hyperextended my knee. I know the coaches in the stands were, totally panicked, because in a month later we were going to Reno, Nevada, which was, a great event for not only us, but, for Long Island. We were the first team in all of New York State to compete in the Tournament of Champions in Reno. So we had that on our table. We had a lot of things going on with expectations. We had one of the best kids in the country, Starlin Jimenez, at the lower weights. We had a great team with me and my drill partner Joe Fernandez in the middle weights, and then we had great heavyweights with Lawrence Banks, and we had a transfer in Antonio Pegues. We knew that we were solid throughout the lineup, but we had a tremendous year. We ended up winning the league title, but losing the league tournament that year. But I always envisioned myself to be a county champ. That's a goal of all the wrestlers. And we tried to, Coach Panarello again challenged us and had me move up weight classes, move down weight classes to find competition. I went up to wrestle Mike Patch at 152, and it ended up, I ended up taking me down in the last couple of seconds to win the match. But it was, it was a great match. And, I knew, after the match, I remember talking to Mike and said, that's a great match. And, I look forward to maybe wrestling you at in the counties at 152. But it was kind of between a rock and a hard place, because, my best friend growing up, my drill partner was Job, and he was there at 152, and, I would never want to compete against him. We loved each other. We was always back and forth training, competing. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And at the time they thought that maybe Jansen was going to go 152. And so, looking at the big picture, I'm like, all right, I'll be at 45. So, fast forward to the league tournament. One of the most exciting times for coaches and wrestlers is the day after the league tournament, that you could look at the results. It's not like it is now with track wrestling, that you could see where everybody was and you kind of know where everybody is going into the league tournament. Back then it was kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes coaches called each other or parents called each other and kind of found out exactly where, guys were. So we didn't really know, where Jansen was going. We thought maybe 52 because he'd won it the year before at 45. So, I was like, all right, maybe Mike Patch will be at 45. And, we didn't know the whole, the logistics of where everybody was. But the next day after I won the leagues, I remember opening up the paper and seeing that Jansen was at 145. It said something like, Jesse Jansen wins 7th league title, 6th league title. And I just kind of took a step back and was kind of upset and crushed a little bit because I'd wrestled him probably 20 times before that. And, every time wasn't very successful on my part. I was a tremendous wrestler. So I did see that and knew that I had some pretty tough competition if I wanted to be a county champ. And at the time there was no wild cards. So it wasn't like, hey, look, if I take second, I could still go to the state tournament. But it was a great training, week for us. As we ramp up pretty hard for the league tournament, after the league tournament to the county tournament. And our coaches, Coach Panarello, Coach Newell, and Coach Barton had me believing that I was going to beat him. The guy was at the time a 3-time state champ, and they had me believing that I was gonna beat him, which I was like, the great job by the coaching staff. Looking back at it now, because going into that final, I knew that that had a shot. So
Definitely a vision quest type of thing. I know that it didn't go your way. I mean, there's no shame in that. He was the first 4-time New York State champ in history. Went on to be the second national champ ever for Harvard. So for you, you kind of talked a little bit earlier in the interview how you knew you wanted to wrestle in college. Now you ended up at Ithaca, but before you ended up at Ithaca, you spent a year at Nassau Community College. I've talked to Cuffy, I wrestled at Nassau myself. I've talked to Ty as well. Nassau, especially back then, it was almost like having a Division I roster with like the guys that were coming in. And you actually never competed for Nassau attached, but you were in that room and going to tournaments with those guys. What was it like wrestling for Coach Schmidt back then? I think Coach Edmonds, who was a national champ for Tennessee, was there on staff too. Right. What was it like being over there around that group of guys? Like, was the competition factor? Like,
that was, as that room is very, very competitive. And I give everybody that wrestled or wrestles at Nassau so much credit, because it's not like any other 4-year school that you can just kind of get out of bed and go to school and go to practice. Like, you have to find a way. And then us being from Brentwood, it's at least 35 minutes, if you're, depending what time you leave. And it's a lot on the wrestlers' plates to compete in that room, and let alone the competition factor. At the time I was in the room with Artie Weidler, who was a state finalist. That was Nick Rausenberger, high school American. Tyshawn, we scrapped a lot of. You had Mike Trotta, you had Mike Cox. You had such a sick room, and that's only mentioning the guys that were the starters. They were the guys that weren't starting or unattached. But that the competition, not only did it help me, it made me believe in even more in myself, because as good as our drill partners were in Brentwood, they weren't Nick Rausenberger, they weren't Weidler, they weren't these guys that were multiple county, multiple state. Already end up going on to Brockport to be the national champ. Nick was a phenomenal wrestler also. Like, you had great drill partners and great guys to work out with. And in Nassau at the time, everything was a group of 3. So, that I would say that definitely made me a lot tougher, because you go to practice, you got to battle. And it was a confidence booster that I knew that no other room that I was going to go into that had that quality of partners through a whole season. So, I knew going into Ithaca, I would have a step above. I thought I would have a step above everybody else. So it was a great room. I tell you, the coaching staffs over there is phenomenal. Coach Schmidt, I wasn't even one of his guys. Like, I was an unattached guy. wasn't helping Nassau, but he opened his heart to me, helped me out numerous times. Same thing with Coach Edmonds. I got a lot of my duck under stuff from him, just standing after practice. And again, I wasn't a guy on the team. I just was a guy, like a practice guy. I wrestled with them unattached, but they opened their arms to me, and they made me feel definitely like I was a part of their team.
Can you talk to me about like that thought process that you had where it's like, I'm gonna go to Nassau, but I'm not gonna wrestle for Nassau. I'm just gonna train there, and then Ithaca, and then going to Ithaca.
Yeah.
Like, you knew you wanted to go to Ithaca, or was it like during the year so you talked to some people and like, I'm gonna go to Ithaca?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to go to Ithaca as soon as I found out in 10th grade that Coach Panarello went to Ithaca. At that time, my dad had Coach Panarello. There's a great story of what he's done for me individual, and he's as humble as they get. He'll never take any credit for it, but I wasn't gonna wrestle my 9th grade year, and he came went to the 9th grade center into my class, pulled me out. I never met him before really, and he goes, "Oh, you're Casey, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I did hear about your dad passing away, and I'm sorry for that. But you're gonna have to wrestle this year. Like, that's what your dad would have wanted. And so I got my stuff the next day, and I came to practice. So after the relationship that I built with him, I knew that I wanted to go to Ithaca. The one thing that he didn't tell me is that you need an 85 average and above 1,000 to get into the school. So I thought all these times, and a little ignorant on my own part, not looking into exactly what you needed to get into Ithaca, but I applied. I didn't get in, and I didn't know what the next option was. And the coaches sat down with Coach Newell and Panarello, said, "Hey, look, go to Nassau for a year and get your grades up." And then I spoke to Coach Nichols, and he's like, he put me in this situation. He goes, "You got to get above a 3.8." I ended up getting a 4.0. And then I didn't have to spend 2 years at Nassau. I was able to get my GPA up high enough, and I got into Ithaca the following year.
So talk to me a little bit about that career, your career at Ithaca. Again, you talked a bit about your senior year and how tough that was. That's another story I know a bit about. But overall, just talk about what it was like being there and being in that new environment with that staff.
Yeah, it was phenomenal because I had one of my other good friends, Charles Greaves, up there the year before, and he was kind of like the buffering guy with Coach Nichols, getting me in contact with him, and a big part of helping me get there also. So I did know some people going up there. I knew Restrepo, coach, obviously Carl Restrepo was still up there as a 5th-year senior. Walking to the room, I did feel a little bit comfortable going in. And again, coming from Nassau's room of wrestling Rasenberger and Wheeler, I thought that, I'm going to be the next best thing coming into Ithaca. So I assumed that I was starting already. And then, Coach Nichols kind of humbles that right away. And he put me with the guy, Ryan Ciatoli, who was, at the time, a 2-time national finalist. And he just, I thought that Nick was good and Artie was good. This, Ciatoli was a different beast. But such a caring big brother that kind of worked with me and kind of guided me through my freshman year. As anybody in your freshman year, I know you've went through it too. After that first couple of months, you don't know if this is the right spot for you. You doubt yourself and you're like, man, you get a little homesick, and I wanted to go back, and I just won some at Nassau. I won 4 or 5 tournaments, some unattached tournaments, and I placed at some high level tournaments. And so I thought I was like a Division I guy. So I'm like, oh, look at me, I can compete with some of these guys. And then same thing at Ithaca. I was very successful in the first couple tournaments. As a freshman, I placed in the body bar, which is Cornell's, at the time, is Cornell's premier tournament. I took 5th there, and I kind of defaulted to 5th. I lost in the semis, but after seeing my success, I'm like, I'm a Division I guy. I'm thinking that I can go D1. But the big picture is, Coach Nichols has sat down with me, and a lot of things that he's spoken to me, not only about wrestling but about life, made a lot of sense to make Ithaca, my home and the place that I was going to be for the next 3 years. So, Coach Nichols, there's no secret why he's such a success at the Division III level. When he the time that he puts into his teams and his players and his athletes, it's just amazing. He has such a good relationship, and he motivates guys in so many different ways. It's Gable-esque almost, like how he just pushes the right buttons here and there. Um, I thought I was going to be the starter the following year, and he looked me right in my eyes and said, "You're not starting next year. There's no way you're going to beat this guy or this guy or this guy." And I'm like, I walked out of the room like, "Oh yeah, right. Now I'm going to go train," and definitely lit a fire underneath my butt going into my freshman year into my sophomore year.
So, what can you kind of elaborate more on like your time, there go, specifically before your senior year, with like highs and lows?
Injuries are always a part of wrestling, especially the college level. So I would say, I got hurt pretty much every year. And you just deal with it. Some injuries that you have, you kind of deal with it. You limit the style that you're wrestling. Ithaca is one of the best places that I could ever recommend anybody to go. Other than the price, it is expensive, but at the time, because of my financial situation, I didn't have to pay as much as everybody else. But the town, the environment, the program, the school, the overall picture of and program that the school offers was something that I needed at the time of my life. I was being from Long Island. Everybody thinks that you're rich going into Ithaca, so they don't really know the demographics of Suffolk County and Brentwood. So when they heard that I was from Suffolk County, Long Island, they assume that you come from the Dix Hills or the Comacs or the Hamptons, or something with that has a lot of money. When they start to talk to these guys about where I come from, it was kind of like a step back. Like, whoa, what do you mean? There's a place like that in Long Island? Like, yeah, it's Brentwood. It's it's a great community, but it's a tough community. It's a low income based community, and we don't have a lot of the amenities that the other schools have or the towns have, but that makes us to what we are now. Like so much more able to deal with diversity and be able to talk to people and socially to be able to interact, which that's what makes Brentwood such a special place. But leading into Ithaca, it's a different beast. You have what you have in Brentwood, and then you go to Ithaca, just that upstate mindset. I say it all the time. You're on Long Island, the light turns green, the person behind you has beeped 10 times for you to go. Upstate, you could be up there and it turns green, the guy might wait a minute or 2 minutes before he even thinks about touching the horn. It was a really laid back, low key environment. So, which was something that I would tell every Long Island person to experience, because it really slows you down and gets you to think more about your life and stuff.
Right. You ended up being an All-American for Ithaca, the Division III level, and we spoke a little bit on it, about that year. Another story that's a tough one, but an inspirational one. You think All-American and you think highs, but it wasn't an easy road for you. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so it was we had a great senior leadership group my freshman year, and what I noticed is that the guys that were successful, we call them the champions of the room. They always did extra. Those guys always did extra. They always, again, similar to my mindset, like focusing on the effort and focusing on the work and the hard work that was putting in, and hopefully you get a good outcome. So going into my sophomore to junior year, I had my sophomore year I was a little banged up. I tore my LCL a couple weeks before the conference tournament. But then I knew that I put my best foot forward going into the training, going into that summer. And I didn't let anything slow me down. Like, again, had a great supporting cast. Again, my brothers, my sister, my mom, my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, were tremendous and making sure that I had those goals set in my head, that I was able to train and make sure I was successful. And Coach Nichols did a phenomenal job and putting me at different camps to work. So I worked the Cornell camp, I worked the Bucknell camp, I worked the Buffalo camp, and I was able to be around some of these top Division I guys. Like, when I was Cornell, we had the kid Minotti that I was me and him were training guys over that summer. We went to Buffalo, and I had the guy Sean Bunch at the time. He was one of the top wrestlers, in our group with Josh Kochek. I was around so many great people, and I could do nothing but get better at wrestling and train and get into a even positive mindset for my goals for the following year. That's when I would say that the goal setting really set into place, because I saw what Coach Cole was doing with his group. I saw what at the time Koscheck was the assistant coach, what he was doing with his group. It was extremely beneficial, because I knew if I wanted to do something successful, I had to make sure that these goals were front and present in front of me. And that's as you could see, somebody like Kyle Dake, who wrote down his goals every day, twice a day, for 4 straight years. Like, that's determination, that's consistency. And that's something that, that Cole had preached. And I kind of took a page out of that, and, kind of applied it to my own work ethic and my own, workout program, off-season program.
Well, so like, what was the road to becoming an all-American? Like, from the personal side to it. You don't have to talk about that stuff if you don't want to, but just
I think it was great. I had great teammates. That was another thing. I had a bunch of teammates, Mark Israel and Rob Stubbs. And there was many more, but just those are the ones. And, there's another, a couple of other teammates mixed in with Dickie White and Gary, but they all had the mindset of being together. And you could see some of these programs, even Division I, that you have some of these guys that just want to party or hang out and do what they're not supposed to be doing, kind of leads them down a bad road. So I was very lucky to surround myself by great like-minded wrestlers that I was able to be around, to train with, to try to be like or beat them in some of the runs and be competitive in some of the things. And, some of those times when you're down, they pick you up, and vice versa. You try to help them out. And, they were a big reason why, my junior year I was pretty successful, because, they start thinking and we start talking like, hey, look, this is something that we could do. Let's get it. What do we have to do as a team to get our program to where it has to be. So, one of the things that we did was, we did Sunday dinners at my house. We had all the team over. Me and another teammate of mine, we had the guy, Jeff Edelstein. We decided that we're going to make family style dinners and have the team come in and try to bring everybody in and get them on the same page of being, a great team. We have to not only hang out together, but we got to do the right thing together. There's a time and place for everything. And, those guys that listened were successful. I wasn't a big party guy, especially during the wrestling season. I didn't really do anything, extra. It was only wrestling. I focused a lot on wrestling, I think, which helped me, be successful. I was the guy first thing in the morning. I made sure I get my run in at 6, got into the pool and then got into another workout later. So that was kind of the mindset. And what happens is other guys see it, and they want to emulate it, and they want to try to, hey, look, some of the younger guys see what Casey's doing, and hopefully it motivated them to be successful also.
Can you take me through that tournament when you finally had reached that goal?
Yeah, so it was a great tournament. I was excited to see it. I could still some of the songs that come on from that tournament are still stuck in my head. So whenever I hear those songs, kind of like when you hear like Kickstock My Heart or something like that, exactly what you're doing. And same thing, like music actually triggers a lot of stuff in the human mind. And same thing, I hear some of the songs that come on, and I'm like, you know what, that was my junior year, right before the semis, final wrestlebacks. These things that are put in place, help me remember it. But tournament was, I believe I was the 6th seed. I won my first match pretty handily. Second match, I ended up losing, close match to to one of the opponents. And then in order to place, you got to win 2 more. So I ended up winning my next round, and then the last match of the night, and I knew that it was going to be one of the tougher kids out of Lorist. He he beat me before in the season. I knew it was going to be a good match, and I ended up obviously beating him. But the biggest problem that day was that I let my weight get out of control. I was just thinking like, look, I don't want weight to, that was something that we've preached to, like, don't let weight be a reason why, don't hold your weight, thinking that they're gonna affect you the next day. Just eat and drink what you need to, to give your body energy throughout the tournament, and then we'll worry about the weight the next day. But that night I stepped on the scale, I was 7.5 over, and just like taken back, because I'm like, but the adrenaline of having been named an All-American and earning it, you knew that nothing was going to stop, nothing was going to stop me from making weight. So I just broke it up into 3 workouts, and, obviously not getting much sleep that night, but making weight and feeling okay in the morning. I end up losing that first match because obviously I was a little bit drained, but, obviously no excuses, but I didn't wrestle well. And then winning my next match for 7th and 8th, which against was one of the guys that had beat me early in the season from Brockport, Romaine Malcolm, actually a Long Island guy out of Amityville. I ended up having to wrestle him again for 7th and 8th, and great match. I think I won maybe 3-2, but after the tournament, that night, I was just so thankful for everybody that contributed to my success. And that's something I still try to do these days. I'm never really an I guy. It's all those people that have helped me get to where I, wanted to be, or that I got to be because of their sacrifices to me, or their time that they dedicated to me. So, as soon as I got off the, off the podium, I made sure that I, thanked my mom, thanked my family, called Amanda, and just, made sure that I was enjoying it. I actually think that I want to say I called a couple more, like Coach Penarello and that whole group, and spoke to them about, my success. And, throughout the tournament, they were following me, and, it was a great feeling to finally accomplish something that I've always wanted to accomplish, knowing that I didn't think I had a really good, successful career in high school. And I thought for the first time in my wrestling career, I did something special. And so that was a good feeling. But what happened was in January of that year, I broke my wrist. I fractured in 2 places, and I was ranked at the time 4th or 5th in the tournament, in the rankings. And they said, your season's over. So, I'm just going backwards, because I do remember that being, because as soon as I got off the plane in March, I went right to the operating room, and I got 3 pins put in my wrist. So in January, I broke my wrist at the national duels. They said I needed a cast, and I would be out for the rest of the year. I went to a second opinion, and they said, look, you could wrestle with it, but you're probably going to need surgery at the end of the season. I said, oh, what's the difference? He said, well, if you're casted, you're going to be out 6 weeks, but we have to cast it now. If you get the surgery, you're going to be out 8 to 10 weeks, and you're going to be in a cast for that long, up to your shoulder. So, obviously an arrogant college kid, I'm like, nope, I'm going to wrestle. So I ended up wrestling, not to the best of my ability, but I ended up doing pretty well. But as soon as I got off the plane, I enjoyed it as much as I could the night after the nationals. And then that next day, on the Sunday, I went into the ER to get operated on. And then I was out, obviously 10 weeks in a cast, which, was sucked as much as anything could be. Right hand, I couldn't write, couldn't do a lot of things. it just was a bad situation, but it was a cool thing because I did get to earn the All-American honors. So
I mean, everybody's got a story, right? I think everybody who's ever reached that pinnacle of success as a wrestler, being an All-American, there was
yeah.
this an injury always plays a part. We've seen Spencer Lee at the D.
I can't even, that's why I don't even want to bring that up because he did a 2 torn ACLs. Obviously had a broken wrist, but this guy, I can't even 2 torn ACLs. I'm like, I thought my story was like, oh, all right, it's kind of tough. Like you finish a year in place. This guy, 2 torn ACLs, wins the NCAA Division I tournament. So
I mean, it's crazy, but it really is the story of the sport.
yeah,
For you, you talked about how you knew you wanted to get into coaching early on.
yep,
I've seen it, as one of your wrestlers. I had Warren Murray, who's, like a big brother to me. A lot of those guys were like big brothers to me, and he talked about it as well. The time you put in, not getting paid because it wasn't there, but just the fact that you loved it so much, the time you were putting in. Tom Ryan has a great quote that he said when 2009, when he came back to Hofstra for the first time as the Ohio State coach. He said, as an athlete, it's all about you, but as a coach, it's all about them. And I know a lot of the guys on the coaching staff embodied that. And you were definitely one of those guys. You came back to Brentwood in what, 2005, 2006?
2005, 2006 was the first year I was back.
Can you kind of talk about like coming back? Like, did you know, like, I'm going to come back to Brentwood, I'm going to coach even if there's not a full-time position there? Like, what was that like?
So I had the opportunity coming back. My senior year was kind of a mess, what was going on. And I knew that I had to either get a job as soon as possible, or at the time Ithaca had offered me a grad assistant position to maybe stay around or maybe get into coaching up there. But at the time of where my family was, because that's what my mom had just passed away, I needed to, think about now more of my family and what I was going to do. And I think that's where it switched because, when that happened, it was, I went back into wrestling, knowing that that's what my mom would have wanted me to do. So I never really wrestled. I want to say I never really wrestled for myself. It mostly was because I always wanted to make either my dad proud when he was, when he first started to get sick, or now, after my dad had passed, to make my mom proud. I found a lot of joy in making my mom proud of what her son was doing. That was my motivation. So people like, what motivated you? That was number one. But then when she'd passed away, it kind of was like, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to think about, all right, now what motivates you? Your number one motivation is not there. So that was like a whirlwind of trying to find something. And it really, I want to say that I didn't know at the time where I was going with the what I wanted to do, and I found that coaching was the most fulfilling part to fill that love and that emptiness. So I say to you guys, I say to you guys all the time, and it's a quote that I got from The Blind Side. As much as I've done for you guys have done just equally, for me, because it definitely had helped fill the spot in not only my competition side, but also my my gratitude, my love, and my appreciation for things. And I definitely was a big part in your guys' lives with that. But again, it was equally, as big as I was in your life, you guys were in my life. And I still get taken back because I don't really acknowledge, when, John or you or Warren or Marsh or you guys come up and, you say how much I've done for you. I don't think I've done that for you. It's just what, how I am. And I would hope if you guys do get an opportunity to do it, you guys do the same thing. But I think that in 05 and 06, when I first got into the room, I felt that right away. And I knew I could maybe compete and maybe do other things. But I had that connection with some of these guys that I'm like, you know what? I believed at the time I had what it took to produce and to help out and to gravitate you guys to be successful. And I wanted to run with it. I wanted to share what I learned and my story. And I think it's, for some kids it was motivating, and for some situations it was positive. And I tried. It helped me grow up too. I knew that as a college kid I was a little bit off the wall, some craziness and stuff. But once I got to see that I was a role model for you guys, I really tried to hone in on being a positive a role model for you guys, to kind of guide you to be successful. Because obviously that's one of our goals. One of my goals is, I would love to see you guys grow up, be successful, and be a great man, and something that we've always preached in the Brentwood room.
Definitely, thank you for those words, Coach. I mean, you say those things, and like you think of a Warren Murray. Like I see Warren with the Beat the Streets Providence now, and he's literally doing the same things that I remember you doing as a coach. Just like stuff that I told you, like you said something going into my senior year, going into the league tournament, and maybe it was after the leagues. You were speaking to John, and then came up to me and were just like, look how much better you got in 1 year. Imagine if you would have had that same focus 3-4 years ago. And that's something that's all, like, wrestling's one of those sports that teaches you life. And like you saying something like that to me is always kind of like stuck with me, as far as don't take things for granted.
Yeah, no, that's I do remember that conversation, because I was so proud of you, Rich. I really was. It was such an amazing year that you put together. Because I remember, you kind of being just like that guy that just we tried to motivate, we tried to get in his head, and you loved it. I don't know if at the time you wanted to be great at it. And I think, I put you in the same situation as my brother. Going into his senior year, he finally wanted to be good. So I was working with him, but for years past, he never put that time in. He loved it. He loved being around it. He loved everything, but he never had that. I could be good. I want to be good. I want to be successful. So, sometimes my brother wrestled because I wrestled, same thing. You loved wrestling, but I think that you got into wrestling even more because of, your dad, and your dad being around the sport. And I very, not to put words in your mouth, but you wanted to make him proud, right? You wanted to, same thing. And that's what I wanted to do. Like you want to make your parents proud. And, you being a part of it. And then once you realize that you were able to be good at it, you're like, I could be good at this. I know what it takes now. And I know now I have the passion, and, and like anything, those seeds of doubts and the confidence is such a big part in, in being successful. And that was one of the things that, I always bring up to your dad, because he told me after I graduated high school that I was going to be the most successful wrestler out of that 2000 class coming out of Brentwood. And I didn't believe him. I'm like, no way. He's like, no, what, listen, mark my words. You're going to be one of the most successful kids that come out of this graduating class out of Brentwood. I'm like, Stalin, all these guys, like, no, and kind of put that confidence in the back of my head, which helped me go, propel me into Nassau. And, I as much as, I look back at it, your dad, again, was a big part why I was successful. Like, going back to my senior year of college, coming off that injury, your dad had helped me out with financially at the time. He was going through things, but he still found a way to help me out. And then as soon as my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in September, I needed all the help that I could have because she was no longer working. And dad, found a way to help me out. And just the phone calls and, the stuff to keep me motivated. It's hard, as can be, is to be up at school when your mom is, passing away, and you have to, my siblings, God bless my again, my two brothers and my sister that was around, you know, giving me the opportunity to be up there and finish school. We didn't know how long my mom had left. So, it was a tough situation that, again, your dad helped out with. And, it definitely, I another person that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, the positive things that your dad has done for me. So I'm, again, very thankful for people like, you and your family, to helped me also.
Nah, thank you, Coach. We're definitely thankful for you as well. And I know we've been going a while here. I only have a couple more questions for you. He's definitely somebody that's been, entrenched in not only the Brentwood wrestling program, but the Brentwood wrestling community. Kind of got into it a little bit with Knapp about his introduction, because he had, if you know him, he's lived a very interesting life. He actually wrestled in high school, but didn't stick with it. Kind of a product of his own environment, and that's why he didn't stick with it. But got back into it into the '90s. What was your introduction to him? And I mean, I guess not everybody always smiles when I say this.
Yeah.
Um, what was your introduction to him? And did you guys like, same question I asked Nappy? Did you guys like see him back then becoming what he is now?
I just saw him as a loud man that was passionate and just loved kids, man. He for a guy to take over the kid program like that and to jump right in, and he was at every tournament, every event. I just, I remember him being that rough guy around the edges, around, some of the adults, but when he was around, the kids, especially me being in ninth grade at the time, it was like, wow, who is this guy? And all the guys are having fun with him, and there's a good group of older guys that were close to your dad, and again, as a young kid, always wanted to emulate, like, who's that guy? He's so positive and so passionate, which you can't measure his passion with anything. Like, he's extremely passionate about all the things that he does, which is why he is what he is. um I couldn't picture where he is now. I didn't know. I just knew he had a huge heart, and he always looked to help me out. Again, when I was in ninth grade, my dad had passed away, and he came up. He's like, "Hey, what do you need?" And I said nothing. He saw the shoes that are on my feet, and he went out and he got me new wrestling shoes that I had. Then he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, as long as I'm around, I want to make sure that you have shoes every year. So I'm going to make sure you're going to have sneakers." And I know that my mom was so thankful, because at the time we were going through so much, and he was a staple for us, especially my mom. My mom loved him because he was, so involved in the kids, and always had the kids' best interest in mind, which, there's so many messed up people out there, and you find a genuine guy like him, and he'll sometimes tell you the good, but he was also going to tell you the bad. So he was honest, and there was no gray. So you can appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely attest to that one. I had spoken to Nappy about, when he had taken over the program, and obviously when Coach P was there, you guys were always just clawing right there for the county title. And when Nappy took over, putting the work in, getting them back up there. And the same thing, like I said, the 2014 was like one of my favorite teams up there, with obviously my class, and then the 08 team, because that was a team that was like right there. You come in, multiple league titles are won. Then the 2008 season, the 07-08 season comes around to prepare for glory year. Can you take me through that, what it was like, the family atmosphere? Because you got Mama Calderon, we talked about my dad, that coaching staff, that group of guys that was just special. Like, what was going into that year, the expectations? Did you know that it was going to be a county title year, and the end results?
Yeah, I think going into that year, I didn't know. I know Knapp had a good feeling that we were going to be, that we had a really good team coming back, but I only knew, what we had from all our summer tournaments. We wrestled in multiple summer tournaments that year. At the time, I was one of the Empire State Games coaches, and I was able to take a bunch of Brentwood guys up there that summer and the summer before. So I knew we had some solid wrestlers. I know we didn't have the individual stars going into those guys' junior year, but they just worked. We went 5 days a week, and then we wrestled on Saturdays or Sundays. And I want to say that went on for, spring and summer for 3 years in a row going in. Coach Knapp did a good job at marketing, that what I was doing for everybody to be down at the room. And, he definitely supported us and, embraced what I was trying to do. It was going into the sophomore year to junior year is when we saw a huge transformation in some of these guys, the Mike Hernandez, the Josh Marshes, we always knew Ricardo was good. He was a stud. We always knew that the Murrays were solid. But there was just guys that needed to do work. Cartagena, we didn't know what we were getting. He was in and out of the sport. We had a lot of I want to say like question marks of these guys, but these guys that were question marks just put in the time. Mike Hernandez is one of the special stories that I remember from those teams, is because he wasn't the most gifted athlete, and goes back to, what we were saying before about you can't control, the outcome. You control how hard you work. And that was Mike, that he can control his work ethic. And he worked his ass off. He was competitive, hated to lose. And Mike, his sophomore year and Marsh's sophomore year, I think they maybe had like 5 or 6 wins each. And, Mike couldn't, shoot a drop step. He couldn't, he had a good grip, but he was very unathletic. And he just worked at it. A bunch of these guys stayed after. I want to say like 7 or 8 of them on a daily basis. And we just went through stuff and developed a pattern for these guys to be successful. And they bought into it. That's a big thing about, believing in your wrestling coaches. And I think those guys believed that what we were doing was going to get them to be successful. And then going to our junior year, a lot of them, Mike was, I think Mike took a 6th. Marsh took a 4th, I believe. Dave was right around the way. Cartagena didn't wrestle that year. But we knew we had a good team coming back. And then we wrestled all summer long going into their senior year. We had tremendous success. We beat, some really high level club teams that Rocky Point had put together. Beat a team Olympic. You were there. I believe you and your dad came down. Just big. Olympic at the time was one of the bigger clubs in New Jersey, and we beat them. We beat an upstate powerhouse team. Coming down. So that's, I think, when we started to see like, hey, look, we have a pretty good team this year. We should make a run. We didn't know how we were going to do individually because there's a lot of good guys coming back, and we knew Ricardo was going to be right in it, but we didn't know about, Josue, Mike, Minsueta, or Marsh, how well they were going to do the following year. But, they put the work in. They, Coach Knapp put a good product in front of them with the prepare for glory. And we had, tremendous coaches that were in there just wanting to get these kids better on a daily basis. And, you had a great thing at Brentwood. You have so many coaches, they're able to grab a group, a couple of kids here, talk to them, get their mind right. Because as sometimes, if nobody's talking to you throughout the season, you start to doubt yourself, and you don't know if anybody cares about you, and you don't feel a part of something. I think that the coaching staff that year did a great job having all the kids believe that they were part of something, preparing for glory, which was, a great marketing aspect for the program.
How did it feel when you guys finally captured that county title? It hadn't been done since the 70s, so like decades of titles and coming close but falling short. What did it feel to finally get that?
So I did listen to you and Coach Knapp's interview, and I think it couldn't. The stars aligned really, like with Coach Campo coming back, with the honoring the gym, and having all these alumni come back and be a part of this great season was was awesome. It made for the season to be that much more exciting. We had some ins and outs. We had some, like anything, like you said before, with the injuries. We had some injuries. We had some, ups and some downs, some key losses. Some positive wins. It was a great, one of the better feelings, wrestling wise, that I've had in my life. That county tournament. I would put that, up there with my own success, if not more, because I got to see these guys be successful. And some of them didn't even believe that they were going to be all county or county champ, but they believed in the process. And I think that was more rewarding than being an All-American from my standpoint, because you saw a kid's happiness, their excitement, which to this day I still look at my two sons, Brody and Braden, and see, when I see them excited and happy, it brings so much joy to my life. And I same thing with my wrestlers. I see their excitement after a big match. It's better than any success that I've ever had. And I would trade all those moments in for you guys to see that excitement and that success, because at the end of the day, I can only take my my happiness so far, but to see you guys do it is that much more rewarding for me anyway.
The 2012 team was a little different. That leading up to 08, that was a lot of preparation stuff. Expectations were kind of there. Now, I know when I was a ninth grader, I think you guys had kind of said maybe this could be the group to do it. But I think I don't know if going into that year we're definitely going to win a county title. And it wasn't. It was definitely an uphill battle, because it was a hard season to start out. Results weren't exactly there, but then you kind of saw the camaraderie starting to form mid-year and the success starting to come through, and then ultimately winning that county championship. What were some of the things that were going through your mind as a coach, and did you feel like we were going to win a county title that year?
Yeah, I always, every year, especially that time frame, I knew that we were going to have great teams, great success. But that year was a little bit different, because you had Longwood, that was a powerhouse for the years prior to that, and we knew that they were going to be always the top top contenders, because they had a great program. They had great guys coming through. They had great wrestlers and great great coaching staff. But we also were solid. We didn't have any holes. We could wrestle. We had some of our guys be, our guys were some of the toughest in the tournament. And it's always said throughout, the years that I was there, that you never want to wrestle, a Brentwood kid in February, because, they're going to be tough, they're going to be in shape, and they're going to know how to wrestle. So that was the case. And we were healthy. We were strong. We felt great going into the league tournament. We had an outstanding league tournament. I felt after the quarterfinals of the leagues that we were going to be county champs. That's how confident I was after our quarterfinals. I'm like, you know what, this is the group. We're gonna win the counties this year, definitely. They have they're gritty, they're stingy, and they didn't accept losing. That's when I see that, it reminds me a lot of myself. So I was just excited for the kids, and for you guys, because it was like everybody contributed too. It wasn't like you had this person not do anything, or this person not want to be a part of it. Everybody contributed, and it was great, because those teams that were before them, the 2010, 2011, 100% guided the 2012 team. I just remember all the beatdowns that David put on Eric, that made Eric the wrestler that he was. All the adversity that Alexis had went through with not being the starter and getting beat out, and all these things that people were dealing with. There was a big reason why we were successful, because if those things didn't happen in years past, then that team wouldn't have the success of 2012. That's, I don't know, that's something that I've always credited the years past, because it was a great county tournament, and it was a great outcome. Then I think it was Longwood. Longwood ended up having
3 county champs.
Yeah, 3 county champs, and we didn't have one. We had 2 finalists, which made for a bittersweet year because, you know, you'd want a county champ and not an ability to go up to the state tournament. You know, that was a great year because, you know, Eric Orlana ended up being, you know, having a close match with Piccinini in the dual meet. And, you know, a week before the league tournament, he bumped up to, you know, to 113. So, you know, that he was, and he lost 1-0. So it was something that he, you know, obviously if he can go back, he would probably get a little bit bigger before the county tournament. But I see it now from a perspective. One of our assistant coaches at Islip was Zach Connor, who was the county champ that year, I believe at, I want to say 189 or 215 or, you know, one of those, maybe 195 he was. And one of the things that he saw from an outside perspective, and he's like, you know what, we saw Brentwood and we saw how they were rolling in and how confident they were and how they were winning those big matches. You know, one of the biggest matches was up top with I'm trying to remember what weight class it was. I'm not gonna be able to remember it now, but I remember just saying like, oh, we won that match, and you know that we have a great shot at beating at winning the county title, and that's, you know, that's how it went. I think it was Toribio coming back. He lost to Grimaldi
Against the Connecticut kid.
Yeah.
Forget his name. He had never beaten him before that weekend.
Never beaten him before. Oh man, I just remember he never beat him before. Actually, the guy Gillen or Gilden or something like that.
Sean Gillen, that's what it was.
All right, so yeah, Sean Gillen ended up beat him up during the season, and then Carlos had to wrestle him for 3rd and 4th in a position that if you won that match,
I think he wrestled him in the Conti semis and beat it. Or maybe you might be right. I know he wrestled Eddie Jennings, but I don't remember if that was in the Conti semis or if he wrestled Jennings for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, it's something like that. I just remember like Carlos having to beat a kid, for 3rd and 4th. It might have been Sean, it might have been somebody else, but
It was definitely Sean Gillen.
Okay, and if he beat him, we locked it up and we couldn't lose the county tournament. And he ended up beating him and taking 3rd, and somebody else like
Might have been Danny.
Misael too.
Oh, yeah, Misael took 3rd place. He actually beat the 1 seed for 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, so that and again another big win for, you know, for him because, you know, I think in maybe it was the summer heat that kid had beat him, the Kings Park kid had beat him in the summer heat or the year before. I remember him being like a little bit nervous, and you remember him, if the guy was bigger, stronger than him, he kind of withered away, but he stepped up and that was a big match. So Carlos and Misael winning those 2 matches, you know, locked up the county tournament for us, which, you know, made things a lot easier for those guys in the finals with less stress, and, you know, and they both had great matches. You know, county finals for Alexis, you know, those top 3, Alexis, DeCrone, and Rashid, you know, you have them wrestle, you know, 100 times, you get a different winner every time. So definitely is a crazy, you know, season, and especially with the way it ended. You know, it was bittersweet because we thought that Eric was going to get the wild card. He ended up not getting the wild card, but Alexis did, and Alexis ended up taking 2nd in the state, which was a great accomplishment. But losing to a kid he beat in the Crone in the state finals.
Now I know we've been on for a while, Coach. I got one more question for you.
I'm loving this. So I love talking about wrestling. So as long as you're willing to talk, I'm here to talk. Also, the boys are in bed. I'm good.
Thank you. It's a little bit of a 2-part question.
Okay.
You know, after years of, you know, Brentwood's your life as far as being a resident there, wrestling there, and then coming back and being a coach. Yep. You know, coaching county champs, all county wrestlers, being a part of county championship teams. You know, I know one of your biggest aspirations for the longest time, even when I was in high school, was you wanted to be a head coach.
Yeah.
the Islip coaching position opens up after Cuffy decides to, who's a teammate of yours at Brentwood, decides to move on for, you know, different opportunities.
Yep.
And you decide to leave. Now, number one, you're stepping in, even though it's a small program, you're stepping into a program with a rich tradition of with a rich history, a lot of success there that, you know, Coach Joe Patrovich had built up, you know, a dynasty at one point, what, three county titles in a row, one of the greatest teams ever over there.
Yep.
State
Tough shoes.
champs. Yeah. And then I say it's a two-part question because it's kind of full circle stuff. When you took the job, you end up bringing one of your high school coaches on as your assistant. So, you know, what was that process like, you know, going through that, deciding to take the job and then bringing Coach Newell on?
So going into that, like I said, like you had stated, I've always wanted to be a head coach. That was something that me and Coach Knapp talked about in 05, 06. You know, eventually, you know, when he was ready to step down, that I would be able to, you know, be the next person to become the head coach. But again, you know, I can't knock Coach Knapp for it because, you know, he loves what he was doing. So, you know, I always felt like with him, he knew I wanted to be a head coach, but he wasn't ready to leave either. So when the Islip job finally came up, you know, the first person I went to was Coach Knapp, and I said, "Hey, Coach, I have this opportunity. You know, at the time in years past, you know, I've had opportunities from other schools to come on board to be the head coach, but those didn't seem too right because at the time at Islip, Coach Panarello was the athletic director, who was my, you know, guy that I followed, a guy that I wanted to be like in, you know, in high school and in college. He gave me a call and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you to, could you come in? I would like to talk to you about it." Um, so after I spoke to Coach Knapp and I said, "Coach, you know, just let me know how many years you have left. I do want an opportunity to be a head coach before my boys, you know, get into their, you know, 9, 10, 11 age that you know, you want to be involved in their life at the time. So, you know, when would you see maybe you, you know, stepping down?" So, you know, he kind of smirked and he's like, "Yeah, in case, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not, I don't think I'm going to step away, you know, next year, you know, maybe not 2 years." So I'm like, "Could you just give me a time frame?" And he's like, "You know, I love what I'm doing. You know, I don't want to step away from it." So, you know, I know he was close to Campbell's record, and, you know, and I didn't want to take that away from him. And he, you know, he gave me his blessing. I told him I'm going to take the job over at Islip, and, you know, we kind of, you know, kind of hugged it out, and we, you know, I was able to interview with Panarello. But regarding Coach Newell, he was Cuffy's assistant the year before.
Yeah.
And he actually called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I got to talk to, you know, my wife, got to talk to Coach Knapp, I got to talk to my athletic director. You know, there's a lot of people that I wanted to talk to." But, you know, he said, "I'm totally, you know, okay with you coming over to be the head coach," and joking around, he's like, "As long as you have me as my assistant, as your assistant, now, you know, how could you not, you know, pass on that?" Coach Newell has been a godsend for me at Islip. He's taught me, you know, so many intricate things about the sport. And, you know, as you know, Coach Newell, he brings such a different aspect to the sport of wrestling, that intensity, the toughness, that resilientness of just grinding things out, and you know, holding kids accountable. I think that's his best attribute for not only the kids but for myself. Like you know, he's that guy that's always going to guide you in the right direction. He's always going to shoot you straight. He's always going to he wants you to be in the best situation. And he's looked after me, you know, he's looked after me for a good part of my life. You know, so I was ecstatic when I was going to be able to coach with him. And, you know, my first couple of years, and not taking anything away from Coach Knapp, but, you know, Coach Newell has taught me so many things about, you know, the planning aspect of the sport. And, you know, Coach Knapp had that intricate part of you know, be able to communicate with kids But Coach Newell had the other aspect. So just like when I was growing up in the wrestling room, you had Coach P with all his different attributes, and Coach Newell and Coach Barton and Coach Knapp. Everybody had these different attributes that made the program such a great program. Same thing. Now I took, some of the stuff from Coach Knapp, and obviously the great stuff that Coach Newell has offered. And he still, to this day, we talk almost every other day about wrestling and about trying to get these kids in the best situation to be successful, about, camps and clinics and, extra practices. And he's been the best thing I could ask for as an assistant coach. And he's Coach Newell too. So, he's always gonna be, blunt, and he's always gonna be straightforward, and there's no gray with him, which is, well, maybe gray on his head, but other than that, there's no gray. There's black or white, right or wrong. So he's definitely a good part to be around.
Right on, Coach. I want to thank you again. You said it's an honor coming on. It's an honor having you on.
Oh, that's great.
You've been a huge part of my life literally since I was a kid. Continue to do it. I mean, before I moved down here, we had some nice conversations, the last time I had seen you. So I just want to thank you again for coming on. Before you get out of here, do you have any final words?
Again, Rich, thank you. I'm not here if it wasn't for, Uncle Tone, Coach Newell, Coach Barton, Coach Gallagher, Coach Condon, Coach Knapp, Coach Panarello. Like, I have so many great people in my life that helped me get to where I am now. And I hope I get the opportunity to continue to influence kids to have that energy and that passion to be either coaching or be around wrestling, or just to influence people in the right perspective to, I don't know, to continue this this great sport, which is at times tough, but definitely rewarding. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, all right. Thank you again, Coach. And signing off, it is Rich and it is Coach Beach. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it.